You can go ahead and start the recording. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our Global Viewpoints Forum, and we've been doing them since March last year, and they've really been a great time to connect with our friends and alumni and family at Legacy International, and to see you all here. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Please keep yourself on mute while our guest speaker is talking, and when we get to the question and answer, you can either chat in the chat box a question and we'll make sure to capture that to ask Mona, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question when that time comes. Thank you again for joining us. I want to introduce our speaker today, Mona Itani. Mona is an engineer, an academic, a social entrepreneur, and after several years of working in telecommunications multinational companies, she joined the American University of Beirut in 2011, where she served as a lecturer and researcher at the Faculty of Engineering in the School of Business. Currently, she is appointed as the coordinator of the Entrepreneurship Initiative at the Maroun Seaman Faculty of Engineering and Architecture, where she is driving the faculty's mission to become a leading entrepreneurship and innovation school in Lebanon and the Middle East. She's published author on entrepreneurship, women, ethics, and engineering education. She's the managing director of Girls in Tech Lebanon and the ex-chair of IEEE Women in Engineering Affinity Group Lebanon, and has co-founded several social initiatives that aim to promote women in technologies such as She Develops Hackathon and Girls Got IT Initiative. She's the founder and CEO of Riada, which is Arabic for entrepreneurship, for social innovation, a social enterprise that offers innovative education programs, corporate training, and consulting services to foster social entrepreneurship and innovation in the Arab world. She has completed her PhD in management from the University of Leicester's School of Business in the UK in 2020, and was a professional fellows program participant with the US Department of State's Professional Fellows Program in 2018. We are lucky and overjoyed to have Mona with us here today. I would like to turn it over to Mr. Rash for a few opening remarks before we get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good day to everybody. I'm so happy to welcome you and our very special guest, Mona Itani, to another in the series of the Global Viewpoints Forum. At Legacy International, we're committed to looking toward the future, embracing new perspectives, acting for the benefit of all people, and affirming the practical and transformational effect of planning and implementing change based on what we call universal values. You know, in November 1789, Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, in a letter that reflected change, wrote to French scientist Jean-Baptiste Leroy, he said, "Our new constitution is now established. Everything seems to promise it will be durable. But in this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes." 2,200 years earlier, Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, told his students, "Everything changes except the law of change." Our work and our purpose at Legacy International is to leave a legacy that is positive and secure, safe, and that encompasses all humanity, all life. We strive to daily to embrace change for the good. Certainly we find the juxtaposition of the tedium of the forces that inhibit change and transformation with the obvious need for change challenging, even at times frustrating. The old ways of addressing the human condition, our planet's environmental struggles, the social inequities, ethical contradictions are failing and giving rise to unrest and polarization. People who are holding tight to selfish and fear-based ideas just reinforces prejudice and bigotry, fear of the other, desire for power over commitment to equality and equity and understanding. They are in direct conflict with the inevitable, with change, exacerbated by the pandemic that ironically unites humanity in some macabre struggle for life, as well as social economic instability. This resistance to overcoming the fear of change has engendered disruption at the foundation of governance and morality, ethics, and even faith. It's precisely at times like this, my friends, that we need to learn to listen to our better self, our visionary self, our youthful self, to reach deep into the core of our hearts and our souls, and also embrace the vision and energy of young leaders. Has it not been a lesson of history? It's a simple question, perhaps so basic that it's been overlooked. How old were the leaders of the American Revolution? As it turns out, many founding fathers were younger than 40 years of age in 1776, with several qualifying as founding teenagers or 20-somethings. We would call them millennials and Gen Z today. And though the average age of the signers of the Declaration of Independence was 44, more than a dozen of them were 35 or younger. At 28 years old, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He would become the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 35, just 4 years before he was assassinated. Alexander Hamilton joined the Revolutionary War before he was 30. In his early 20s, Hamilton became Washington's loyal advisor and military strategist. Hamilton would then go on to serve as chief of staff to George Washington, all before the age of 30. In 1905, at the age of 26, Einstein would have been what many would call a miracle year for him. In a matter of months, Einstein would first publish his first 5 papers that would revolutionize the world of science, including his famed E equals MC squared equation. He would obtain his doctorate that year as well, and he would go on to win the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921 at the age of 42. George Washington was made commander of all Virginia troops at the age of 23, resigned, and a few years later he was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses at 26, launching his political career. Nelson Mandela became actively involved in the anti-apartheid movement in his 20s and would join the African National Congress in his mid-20s after forming the ANC Youth League. And Charles Darwin began his scientific explorations around the world. In South America, he was 22. Shakespeare is said to have written his first plays in his 20s. Alexander the Great died at 32. The list goes on and on and on. Shama bin Suhail Ferez Mazrui, 23 years old, is a youth advocate today. Malala, as we know, 22, women's and girls' education. Parkland shooting survivors, at various young ages, dealing with gun control. Yara Shahidi, 19, women's and girls' engagement advocate, and James Margolin and Greta Thunberg in their teens for climate change. Look, my point is obvious. We live at a time when we must encourage and listen to and affirm the voice of the hopes of the youth. But most important, we must do that by operating from the core values that unite humanity. And as history shows us, some of our predecessors acted not for the good of humanity, and others reached for the highest, most altruistic expressions of human goodness. Today's presenter, Mona Itani, is uniquely qualified as a visionary and what I call a practical idealist. You have heard already of her accomplishments. What I want to draw your attention to is that she not only represents the future of young leaders and visionaries, but she trains others towards the same goals and imbues them with the same principles that she espouses and operates from. I've had the pleasure and honor to work with her, and we continue to plan the future work of legacy and reality as motivating forces for the change that is so needed in today's world. Lebanon, like so many countries today, is feeling not only the disruption from COVID, but the youth and young leaders calling out for change, for equity and equality, for social and political transformation. People of vision can and are working together across generations to make this change a reality. And Mona Itani is one of the great leaders that we work with at Legacy International in creating a new tomorrow today. Thank you so much for joining us, Mona, and I will turn it over to you.
Mona had a quick technical check that she just had to do, Mr. Rash. She should be back in oh, there she is. Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I just made sure that I have all my devices plugged in in case of any emergency. But I'm really honored, and yes, I am blushing a bit. Thank you, Dr. Ash, for whatever you've said about me. And I hope that I would deserve this. This is what I aspire to become, really a role model for the youth, and hopefully to, like you, be able to impact as many youth as possible. So I believe we have this common vision and common mission. And this is what is bringing us back together at Legacy. I'm very honored that I'm an alumna from your PFP program. And I hope that today I will be able to inspire others as well to seek change within themselves. So I know we have a lot of change makers in the room. So I hope this will give you another dose of motivation to continue or pursue this journey of change and of creating impact in the world. And if you haven't started yet, it's never too late. So you can always start. And also, I hope that today's session will be a bit of food for thought and some inspiration also on how to start. And if there's something that you wanted to do and haven't been able to start, just to get this motivation. So I have prepared a few slides that I will be sharing with you. And I really would like this to be interactive, even if that means that you can share some of your opinions in the chat. So I really would like to hear from you, to listen from you, and not just be talking on my own. So basically, thank you a lot for the great introduction. And before really we dwell on creating theory of change, I'm gonna be talking also a bit about how I created my theory of change as a practical example to this concept. I would really like to ask everybody how they have been dealing with the pandemic so far. And I know in Lebanon we have been dealing with much more than the pandemic, but definitely it has been a major force and a major drive of change. So I would really like to hear your comments, maybe in the chat. It was change only imposed on you, or did you also actively create some change in your life? Did you make some resolutions to change in any way? It could be to have maybe to change part of your nutrition or your lifestyle or your health or how you work or okay. So I personally would like to say that every time I say this, a lot of people are a bit surprised. I think 2020, with all its negatives, especially for Lebanon, was for me one of the best years. Not because I'm liking staying at home, but simply because I believe that the change that happened and the way I felt that we were able to adapt and to change and to really be flexible and just not give up was amazing. And I felt that in just a matter of months, a lot of people, I'm not just talking about myself here, but I'm one of the people who were really able to adapt quickly and change. Of course, I'm talking about work, about how we do business, how we do social innovation, entrepreneurship training, moving completely to virtual, moving many times to Zoom, but also planning more than that, working hard to create an e-learning platform, working with other clients from abroad because of the very bad economic and financial situation in Lebanon. We also had to work with other clients, and all of that adaptability was very relieving, because you see you don't have to feel ever stuck, because no matter what happens, you can actually make things work somehow. Yes, it does take some time. I was completely idle in terms of my social enterprise for maybe 3 or 4 months, which is okay, which is totally fine. We sometimes need the break, need some reflection. But instead of just saying, oh, that was the worst year, and I'm just looking for COVID to be over, I think COVID gave us a great opportunity to just reflect and think internally about what we're doing, and if you want to keep doing things the same way, if you want to change anything, and just plan and start executing. And I would say that the whole world also could see that the world is not doing well. And I hope that this wake-up call would really resonate with like world leaders, with huge corporations, and I hope they will change something and not just go back to normal, because I mean, I personally don't want to go back to normal. I don't think the normal was working. So let's go back to a better normal, hopefully. I mean, we want, of course, COVID to be over, but we want to have learned a lesson from it. So I can see there are some really great comments in the chat about adaptation and okay, yeah, I like that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I would like to tell you briefly about my journey so far and how I decided to create change. So basically, I had what you call maybe a quarter life crisis, I would say, at the age of 31. And I realized that I'm like too scattered. I don't know what I want to do. I was doing so many things at the same time, volunteering and different not-for-profit initiatives and organizations. I was doing my academic work, research work, but I really didn't know who am I? Like, what is it that I really want to do? And after doing a lot of reflection, after being down for so long, crying sometimes, I then was able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And that I realized that I want to leverage on my academic experience, my experience with the youth, with people who are only like 19, 20 years old. And I want to fix some problems that I saw in the education system. And this is not pertinent to Lebanon only, but really it's a global issue. We tend to focus on things that are becoming a bit obsolete in the education system, and we are not equipping our youth with what we call 21st century skills. Even in engineering, we for example, focus more on theory than on doing things practically. We still adopt like hard skills instead of soft skills. And now we say that soft skills are the new hard skills. So the world is changing, the needs of the job market are changing, and definitely you can imagine now with COVID, like everything has changed completely. So we really need to prepare our youth to this kind of new world that has been changing anyway. And I think COVID has accelerated this change like multiple times. And I thought that really we have great tools that are just in front of our eyes, but we never leverage them in the right way. One of these tools is technology. Our youth, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that. They tend to consume technology so much, but they are consuming it in a passive way. Why don't we teach them or train them and show them that they can actually, instead of just consuming technology, they can create technology. Technology is definitely a double-edged sword, yet it's a great tool that can make the world a better place if it's used properly. And it's our job as educators, as thought leaders, as change makers, to really advocate this idea of let's encourage and let's train the youth and let's show them that they can use technology for good. More so when it comes to entrepreneurship, the whole idea behind my social enterprise started when I was going to a lot of different conferences and events on entrepreneurship. We had huge support from the government and the central bank back then for entrepreneurship, but everybody was talking about entrepreneurship in Lebanon as if we are in the Silicon Valley. Everyone was talking about becoming the next millionaire, creating unicorns. But I mean, that's great, definitely. And who doesn't want to become a millionaire or to create a unicorn company? But if you want to be realistic, it's not the same. I mean, we're not in Silicon Valley. The environment is not the same. The talent we have are not the same. So we have to be more realistic. We have 1,000 social and environmental problems in Lebanon that need to be solved before we create, this next great game that will become viral and everybody in the world will start using it, for example. There are so many other core problems that we have in our society, and we are at the same time, instead of looking at them and trying to find solutions for them, we're just encouraging our youth to become entrepreneurs and make a lot of money and create these huge companies that will employ hundreds of people. And of course, it didn't work. It like this whole system collapsed, and I could see this early on because I knew that the context doesn't help. And I wanted to really advocate for entrepreneurship as a tool or a method to create change rather than just to create money. Again, I'm not against making money. I'm not against having profits. On the contrary, however, I believe that if you want youth to buy into the idea of entrepreneurship, you have to give them purpose. And their purpose cannot just be profit making, because entrepreneurship is a hard, long journey. And if their goal is just the money, they might give up on that if they don't see that it's going to come quickly. Whereas if it's a social cause, if it's a passion that they're working for, they're probably going to have more perseverance. They're going to have much longer breath in order to face the challenges and keep going, not give up until they start succeeding. So this was my main goal. And I said, like, how do I change the world? I'm a mother. I know, I mean, how bad this world is for my kids, but I feel that I have like a duty to rectify this world and however I can. I mean, I don't have a magic wand to do much here, but I feel that I have a responsibility to leave this world a bit better than it was before I came to it, because I want to leave a legacy and I want to create a better world for my children and my grandchildren to live in. So this is how the whole idea of Riyada for Social Innovation started. I wanted to create training programs and spaces for youth to really use technology for the social good, to use entrepreneurship to change the world. I believe that if I create change makers, then I will be changing the world. So this is really how it all started. Started very small, very like organic, with one program. We were testing with it with high schoolers as a summer program. And people started hearing more about us. We started getting some other projects like working with NGOs, providing training on social entrepreneurship for refugees or for people in less privileged groups in Lebanon. Also, we were asked to do some coaching, mentorship programs internally and regionally as well, in Qatar, in Turkey, in the UAE, and several other countries. And now with COVID, we were able to completely move to virtual. So definitely it has slowed us down at the very beginning, yet we adapted quickly, as I mentioned earlier, and we started creating e-learning courses. If you go to our YouTube channel, for example, you will find several. We are using like spoken Arabic in them, but now we are also creating English courses. And all of this has led us to think like, all right, if I want to create this change, this is great. I could see the impact, and some of our alumni are with us today as well. And I hope they can also talk about the impact that Riyada has made on their lives. We have a lot of success stories, a lot of really very, very moving stories and testimonials. But at the same time, I also realized that this is not very scalable. So definitely any one successful story is good enough. However, I wanted more. I wanted to achieve more. And by talking to mentors and being into entrepreneurship competitions, I also realized that if we want to scale, we have to go online. And we realized this early on in 2018, basically. And this is where we started planning to go to online, but we couldn't do it until COVID came. And this is why I think COVID has been such a blessing, because it forced us to do what we have been talking about for 2 years. And this is the outcome. Now we are, hopefully next week, we're going to be launching shabablab.com. It's almost ready. If you go there, you will see it, but we are still not advertising for it as launched yet. And we are starting with very few courses, very few programs. And now we have started talking to schools in Lebanon and in the UAE to start subscribing on the platform. So again, we can spread this message to not just like hundreds or thousands of young, change makers. We want to spread this message to hundreds of thousands or hopefully millions in a few years' time. So this is what we want. We want to be this space where the youth can really tinker and create and innovate and create their own social enterprises. And each one of us, like, they have their own passion. My passion is in training and mentoring because I'm an educator, but for other people it will be different. So we want to encourage them to pursue their passion and to really help their community. By doing that, they will be equipped with 21st century skills, communication skills, teamwork, presentation skills, innovation, technology, programming. So, I mean, if you look at the World Economic Forum's top 10 skills for 2025, we're covering all of these in our programs. And I like my message today by talking about theory of change is that it's really up to us whether we want to like just go with the flow and with everybody else, and if there's something gloomy going on, to just say I'll take a break and I will wait for things to become better, or if I want to look at the other side, at the at the half cup full. And although it might sound as a cliche, I really believe that this is what we have to do. And I'm going to be telling you how to do it in a more practical way in this session, in this talk. And this is where I believe that the theory of change could be a very, very strong tool for us to use. It's a powerful tool for any person, whether they are an individual, whether they are running an endeavor, a not-for-profit initiative, or an organization or a corporation, or even it could apply to governments. I mean, it applies to anybody really. And I'm going to be quickly talking about why we need the theory of change, what does it entail and what does it mean, who can use it and when should it be used and how to use it. And I really would like to start with this golden circle. So one of my favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, simply because I believe that he touches a very important point that a lot of organizations miss. So a lot of organizations, they tend to focus on their communication of what they do. Sometimes to differentiate themselves, they talk about how they do things differently, but very few organizations really talk about why they do what they do. So the purpose behind it, the vision behind it, again, like, why do we do this? And this is how I try to start my talk, like why I did what I did, why am I doing what I'm doing now? Because I mean, this sense of purpose resonates with people so well. And as again, as an initiative or as a social enterprise or as an organization, we have to communicate this why in order to be able to have the buy-in of our users, of the community, of potential customers, of partners, and so on. So this is very, very important. And I think that the theory of change, again, is a great framework that helps you get to this core, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, what's the purpose behind it? It helps you also like strategically plan your next steps, and it helps you look at impact so that you can maximize impact. So I'm going to quickly tell you how I think about the theory of change. So basically, the theory of change is a comprehensive description and illustration of how and why a desired change is expected to happen in a particular context. And I'm going to tell you my own theory of change. So based on the story I shared with you about Riyada and about Shabab Lab, now the e-learning platform that we're going to be launching, I believe that if we equip the Arab youth with the right skills and provide them with the right environment to create solutions and to utilize technology and entrepreneurship for the social good, then they will become the change makers and the social innovators of their communities. So this if-then statement is what we call the theory of change. This is my theory of change. Based on this statement, I launched my social enterprise. And based on this statement, now we are moving into the e-learning platform. And here it says that people who use if-then statements are 300% more likely to reach their goals. So I would like to ask each one of you to think about your own theory of change. What is your if-then statement? If I do what, then what will happen? And this has to really be related to the why, like the purpose behind doing things. Like why do I need to empower the youth? Because I believe they are the change, because I believe it's the only way to rectify, whatever the past generations have been doing to the world. It's the only way to combat climate change. It's the only way to become more considerate and more friendly towards our planet. It's the only way to really help all the community issues that we have. It's like we have to empower the youth, make them these agents of change, the change makers that I call. So this is my why. I would like to invite you to think of your why as well. What's your theory of change? So this is what is the theory of change, who and when. So basically, this really applies well to organizations, to individuals, to startup companies, social enterprises. Definitely, we actually train our youth on the theory of change whenever we are talking about social entrepreneurship. It would apply to new initiatives, any interventions, or any nonprofit project as well. So even, as I said, governmental projects, this could even apply really well. And the whole idea here is that we want to ensure the alignment between the stated mission, this is like what I'm trying to achieve, and the actual details and breakdown of this initiative or project. And this is another way that will help us really align in terms of team members to make sure that all of us in the team, we have the same goal. We are aware about the vision, the larger end goal that we are doing everything to achieve, and to understand each person's role in this journey. So definitely in large organizations, if they are working on multiple projects, it could be a good idea to put an overall theory of change and then look at the different projects and how they fit into this bigger theory of change. And also another great way that we use this is to really measure our impact, because I'm sure you know that we say it's not enough to do a lot of initiatives, a lot of activities, but we want to see the impact. So how do you measure your impact? How do you determine metrics? The theory of change really helps very well in determining these metrics and in measuring them along the way so that we can report them. And it's not just for reporting purposes, but also for self-assessment and internal evaluation purposes, to know where we have been doing well, where we haven't been doing so well, so we rectify it as we move along. So how to write a theory of change? As I said, the if-then statement really helps a lot, but also we have to, like, there are many other tools. For example, we sometimes do a problem tree, like we identify the problem we're trying to address. Sometimes we do it backwards. So we start with the end goal or the impact, and then we go backwards. All right, so if this is the long-term impact, what is the medium term outcome, and what is the shorter term output? So you can, there are many ways to do it. Many times we believe that it's good to do it backwards because you know what's the end goal, but then you have to go step by step backwards to see how you're going to be starting with it. And along the way, it's very important to look at the assumptions. Like, for example, in my case, I am assuming that the youth will resonate with this whole thing about using technology for good. I'm assuming that schools will be supportive of this mission of bringing these 21st century skills to their students. I'm assuming that students who will experience this journey will actually be moved by it, and they will want to do more of it even after they graduate from our program or they move on to college, for example. So there are a lot of different assumptions, and it's very important that you lay those assumptions down. Also because if you find out that one or more of them are not true, to see how to rectify and to improve as you go along. And definitely developing indicators, drawing responsibility. And I believe that the next slide will really show you, oops, sorry about that. All right, so this is really what we call the logic framework or the logic model. And I remember that we did cover this as well in Legacy's PFP program. And again, this is not a training session. It's just like me telling you how I use my, theory of change in my work as a social entrepreneur, and inviting others to look at this tool as a framework to lay things down in a systematic way and to start getting in terms of doing things and changing things in their work or in their personal life. It really depends on what you want to do. And here really it's like the 5-step framework. And as I said, you might want to do it backwards, but also you can do it from step 1 to step 5. And I'm going to give a quick example, I believe, before we open it up to a Q&A. Again, based on my social enterprise, Riyada for Social Innovation, and the e-learning platform Shabab Lab, I have to think what are the inputs or the resources that I need to achieve this goal of creating change makers and social innovators in the Arab world. So definitely, in order to create an e-learning platform, for example, we need the technology, we need the developers, we need the content, we need interactive content, we need to have instructors who are going to be following up with the students in their journey. We need people to communicate the message about the platform. We need to onboard schools on the platform. We need to explain to students what the platform does. So there are so many inputs that we need before we start doing any change. So these are the inputs that you have to think about. Of course, you need money or some funding or some resources. You need time. You need organizational support, an entity to work under, for example. You need a community, and so on, facilities also. So all of this is part of inputs, and you have to lay it down very, very clearly. When it comes to the activities, what are the activities that we have to undergo in order to make this, again, to make it to the end goal? So in our case, we have to create videos, we have to integrate interactive components in these videos, we have to transcribe the videos, we have to create it in both English and Arabic, and soon in French, for example. We have to onboard the students, we have to give them a tour, we have to do marketing, we have to do market research, we have to do so many things, basically. So all these activities, also we lay them down. What strategies, what programs do we need in order, again, to achieve to our final impact? And here's like the 3, 4, 5 are really when we start seeing results. So the very first one is what we call the outputs. And this is, for example, let's say we launch next week, and in like 1 month, we had 50 people go through the platform and finish some courses. So my output is that we have been able to train 50 people on, for example, social innovation and entrepreneurship. This is a direct output, but I mean, this is just a number. So it's very important to know that outputs are never enough. And this is why in social entrepreneurship, we always say it takes a long time to measure your impact, because I mean, the direct output is still not reaching your end goal. So even if I was able to, let's say, train, like I'm going to give an example. We had a few years back an initiative called like 1 million Arab coders, I believe. So the target was to reach 1 million people that will take this coding training. So that's the output. So even if we reached 1 million coders, does that mean that now we have 1 million new coders in the Arab world? Like, what's the outcome here? Like, we have to think about the next step. So the outcome maybe is to have a better pool of talent for companies, whether they are startups or established companies or multinationals in the region, that they will find people who are more equipped, more ready to take on these high-tech jobs or roles that are, of course, the demand on them is increasing with time. So this could be an outcome. The impact could be, for example, we have worked to reduce unemployment. It could be that we have actually empowered the coders to develop their own coding academies, or I mean, there are many like options here. But my point is, like arriving at the 1 million number is not enough. It's not like the impact. It's really just an output. And many times, especially when we talk about the field of corporate social responsibility, for example, many companies or corporations, they stop at the outputs level. Like we have trained so many people, we have helped I don't know how many employees to do what, or this how many hours of volunteering, but that's not enough. That's just the start. So that's the direct output. You always have to think like more about what's my outcome. So what's my medium term effect? How am I changing these lives on the medium term? And then the impact, which is not that easy to measure, because in our case, for example, then it means that we have to follow up with these youth when they're still at high school and until they graduate from college, let's say, or at least 5-6 years down the line, to know how this experience has shaped their lives and how they pursued this journey of social innovation, how they contributed to their community, not just in our program, because this is something we can very easily capture and it's part of our outputs, but we want to capture it on the longer run. What's the impact, and how has this experience really made them be change makers, or to innovate, to solve social problems in their communities, and so on. So this is it in a nutshell, and I believe there are great references out there. So this is another like framework that you can use, and you can lay all the assumptions down there. And these are a few of the resources that I used. I hope that this story journey and how I used the theory of change to create Riyada and to really now create the Shabab Lab with, of course, the help of a great team who are working with us on this endeavor is somehow inspiring. And I'm ready to take any questions from you. I'm sorry I couldn't catch up with all the comments on the chat.
Thank you so much, Mona. We'll open the floor for questions, so feel free to chat in the chat box your question, or go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask a question. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed. This is my first time here today. And I really like the message that you guys are promoting. At the age of 21 years old, I don't think I hear this message enough. And but my question for Mona is related to the failures that you've observed in relation to the educational system in Arab countries. Do you think the difficulties that the students are having due to the language barrier? Because I noticed when I was studying 7 years ago in middle school back in Mauritania, our first language is Arabic, but when we go to school, we do math, physics, and other subjects in French. So there seems to be a contradiction between those two. And I had a problem with the educational system and just understanding the teacher altogether. So did you see that was a legitimate problem that some of these students are having? Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I personally come from a background where I was privileged, I would say, to not have this language barrier. So I was like in a private school that was really like, good level English education, so on. But as soon as I started working with the youth at the high school level, I realized this discrepancy that you maybe have described. And very quickly we had to adapt, because at the very beginning, I thought that even the privileged students, they need this kind of intervention to use entrepreneurship and technology for social good. But then I quickly realized that we cannot make this exclusive to the privileged, although they definitely lack the social awareness and the community engagement. So they still need this intervention, yet I thought it would be contradictory to the values of our social enterprise to restrict it to the privileged people. So we directly had to find ways to make it more inclusive to the less privileged, which often had this language barrier, as you just explained. For example, in our public schools in Lebanon, their second language, whether, I mean, regardless if it's French or English, it's not at the needed level that we need in order to go online, learn on your own, get to, for example, have some work opportunities with international companies and so on. So what we did is that, I mean, we didn't go towards like teaching them English, because I think this defeats a bit the purpose here. But what we did is that we started adopting the modern, the like spoken Lebanese accent or language in our trainings. So still, I mean, I was very keen to keep the material in English, because we need them to learn the basic terminology, to understand, what entrepreneurship is in English, and like the main terminology when it comes to design thinking, social innovation, theory of change, and so on. But we'd explain everything in Arabic as well, and make them feel comfortable to use the Lebanese Arabic language in their presentations and so on. And even when it came to doing videos, e-learning videos, we were adopting the Lebanese spoken language, which I believe is fine with other countries as well to understand. And we thought that was a good compromise, but we are sticking to the English terminology, because sometimes when you translate terminology to Arabic, it gets very funny, I would say, and it loses its essence. Especially if it's originating from the West, for example. So we are keen to remove this language barrier by offering training in Arabic and making the youth comfortable about using Arabic or creating solutions in Arabic. But we want to make sure that they also understand the terminology in English, so that also this is a boost in terms of their skills.
Thank you, Mona. There's a question in the chat from Samia. Samia, you can go ahead and ask the question if you like by taking off your mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my first question is about, so is Riyadh based only in Lebanon? Are you communicating like about your social project abroad, like, or just in the region, like Arabic region, or internationally?
Yeah, thank you, Samia, for your question. So basically, legally speaking, we are established in Lebanon. So we only have one legal entity, which is based in Lebanon, but we're very open to establish more companies in other parts of the world, especially the Arab world, maybe to start with. And we are already, we already have projects and clients in the region, as I said, like in Qatar, and we had with KSA at one point in time, UAE, now we have several projects with them, Turkey, yeah, and Jordan, I believe they could be also a good candidate, and hopefully Syria, when the whole war thing is over, also I believe they need similar kinds of services. So we're very open to this regional collaboration and presence. But I mean, in terms of marketing, honestly, we haven't been investing too much in our marketing, simply because due to the lack of financial resources. But now with the e-learning platform and with whatever Lebanon is facing, I don't think that the Lebanese market might be the best market for us. So we definitely want to reach out to other markets. And as I said, we're starting with Lebanon because it's a great testing market. We know it inside out, and the UAE as well. And we want to slowly be spreading to other countries as soon as we know that our platform is robust, that the experience has been successful for like the first batch or cohort. But definitely, I mean, the whole idea behind e-learning and going online, I would say, is to have the scalability. And by scalability, I mean, Lebanon, if you just look at the map, you will know how small it is. It's a dot on the map. So I have realized this as a Lebanese, as an entrepreneur. And I know that if I want to just focus on the Lebanese market, I really won't be able to do a huge impact. And we have a blessing in the Arab world that we have at least this common factor of language. So this is why we're also keen to be having to support the Arabic language, because that means we can penetrate 22 different countries at once.
All right, thank you for your response. I think also we have the same kind of problems and like stuff like that. So my second question is about, so according to your experience, how do you find the relationship between your government, for example, in Lebanon, and change making done by young people? Because I don't know, for example, in Tunisia, our government, like they are doing a great marketing about encouraging young people to make investment, to create their social project or even business. And then when young people start their social project or their business, they find themselves in a lot of issues like administrative stuff. So how do you find this relationship between your project, your change making project, and your government or your administrative administration in Lebanon?
Yeah. Look, we have a very negative experience in Lebanon with the government. I'm sure you've been hearing the news, like all the revolution and so on. I'm somebody who encourages the youth like to try to think of solutions that do not need governmental permission as a way to circumvent this whole issue. I know this might not be the optimal way. I mean, and many times, you know, there are several problems that really need governmental intervention, but we really try to keep our youth away from this whole process, because honestly, the government, like if let's say we are trying to create this, you know, educational hub, and I go tomorrow to the Ministry of Education and I talk to them about it, they will never tell me that, no, we don't want to support you. They will like tell me, yeah, definitely, this is great, we like this, we love this, but nothing will happen. So we will get into a process that, you know, like years and years and nothing happens. So and we know this, it's like very bureaucratic. They have many other priorities now on their plate with everything that's happening. It's a big mess and chaos in Lebanon, unfortunately. So the last thing we want is our youth knocking on any like governmental doors asking for any permissions or any support from the government, because it's a whole racket system, and I hope honestly it collapses altogether very soon, because we need sometimes just like a fresh start. But like before that happens, we're just encouraging our youth to think of other kinds of solutions that do not necessarily need this governmental support. And I agree that at one point in time we did have talks, I would say talks or like promises from the government that we want to support youth, so on and so forth. But this didn't last for long, unfortunately. And even when it was there, the real impact behind it was very minimal. Like the results were like very shy, I would say. So I learned the hard way to keep away from anything that has to do with the government. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, I know it doesn't sound really great, but that's the situation here. And there's a question from Bernadette. I'm gonna answer it. So it's about the theory of change and how detailed you should go into it, and if we should consider contingency plans. So I would say, Bernadette, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, for us, we did this exercise maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And basically, I believe that every few months you have to revisit this exercise. You don't have to go in a great level of depth and like to outlay all different kinds of contingency plans, but it's very important every now and then to revisit and see like, are your assumptions holding? If not, you do version 1, version 2, version 3, so on. You keep changing and you keep again adapting to your new findings. And this is, I believe, the beauty of starting something new, working on your own, you know, passion, on your own endeavor. This is the beauty of being entrepreneurs, and more specifically social entrepreneurs, is that you're going to be learning so much when you start executing. You're going to be, again, learning about the whether your assumptions are correct or not, what's the best way to do things. only by trial and error you're gonna know this. So it doesn't have to be extremely detailed at first, but as you go, just make sure you revisit and review.
It also looks like we have a question from Jack. Go ahead, Jack.
Hello, Mona. Thank you so much for the inspiration. I have a question about the initiative, but before I would like to add something related to government, and that's an urgent thing that should be done maybe with all the initiatives, is that, you know, that failing in Lebanon is very hard. You know, you need to stay 5 years to close a company. So if you start a business, it's a nightmare to shut it down. While failure should be a process in the journey, it's not in Lebanon, it's a disaster. So I tried with many people who were trying to push for legislations to change this, but it's hard. But I think if we raise the voice, it will be changed like everything else. I think this is very critical because, yeah, we learned it the hard way. Thank you for sharing all the details. I know it's being in Lebanon is different. You have, you know, everything you need to fail and to struggle and everything. But I had I'm not sure if it's a failure already, but I launched an initiative to support support with digital transformation all the sectors. And I had a lot of meetings with ministries as well. I supported many ministries with the team that I created. But at the end, it was very fast. The situation was going worse, and people were, you know, I didn't know where to focus, and I end up leaving my work for 2-3 months, my personal work, my personal business, because I end up with a lot of teams who are really in need to be helped, especially in the government. So I heard from teams in the ministries that they need to do and to interact about a lot of stuff, especially in the Ministry of Health, which was related to COVID-19. And they keep saying that it's not our fault. We were hired for a different job description. Now we are doing something else, and we don't have the knowledge. Our work and my team was to train and to, you know, help people govern their businesses or their initiatives or anything else. But we end up like helping, you know, a very small part of people because of, you know, the wide range of needs. So how do you think you can focus and do and accept that you cannot help everyone and you cannot help save everything? You just stick to what you can do.
Definitely, I believe this is like one of the most, the very first pieces of advice that you get in any entrepreneurship training or incubation program or acceleration program. Like, and this is why we always fight with our students, like, don't mention that you're going to be doing like 10 things, like just focus on one very narrow thing, because exactly of this, your ability or your ability to, your capacity basically in terms of how much you can, how many clients you can serve or how many needs you can serve. So I believe it's very important that from the very start, and I wouldn't call it failure, actually this is a great lesson learned for you, and you simply say, all right, we can't do all of this anymore, so this is what we're focusing on, like very specific thing. And it could be a small part of digital transformation. It doesn't have to be like the entire digital transformation of a company that you're gonna be responsible for from A to Z. And I believe the best way to do it is to do this kind of needs assessment with the organization or the client you're working with, and to really pinpoint what's the most urgent need right now, and you just focus on that. And I believe this is how we should deal under crisis. Like, we cannot do everything that we want to. We have to be very specific, and we have to focus on priorities, on like top urgencies. And if we just do that, you will probably be able to serve more clients, I would say, than if you wanted to like do the full-fledged digital transformation for like everyone. Because if you're starting new and you're starting small, you don't have the capacity, and that's normal. Even if you want to build the capacity, it takes time because you need to do it well. You need the experience. You need, to organize this. You need to build a team that is harmonized, that can work together while being virtually, connected and not physically connected in one place. I mean, there are so many obstacles now. This is why we have to be very aware of our capacity. And again, like your end goal, Jack, is to do this major transformation, but this is the end goal. So always remember theory of change. That's the impact. How do I get there? There are so many other steps I have to start with. So always start small. Like I always tell the entrepreneurs we work with or the youth that you have to dream big, but at the same time, you have to start very, very small and very focused. This is what we did actually, like in only 3 years down the line, we started implementing this e-learning platform thing. Although we knew about it ahead of time before COVID, we had it in mind, but it wasn't the right time, or we didn't have enough resources, didn't have enough capacity. And the whole 3 years where we were working in a face-to-face manner is how we learned and how we tested and validated our program, the logic. So even though it might sound long, like 3.5 years you're testing, we're like, yeah, it does need time to test and to make sure that what you're doing makes sense, it resonates with others, it's impactful, and so on. So yeah, I don't think of this as failure at all, but it's a great lesson to reorganize how you're doing things and to focus more. And I think Abdo has a question.
Yeah, I think we have time for another question from Abdo. Go ahead, thanks.
Mona, that was super, super exciting. I think also I'm pretty excited to be connecting with you after that. I think I was a colleague of Mona during the same program. And I think we talked a little bit about the potential for doing all these things. So I just wanted to hop in to tell you that it's exciting to see these projects launching. I think that we talked about it briefly during the program. And also to say that you also have a partner here, and also I'm much closer now. I'm like 600 kilometers closer to Lebanon now. So I relocated to Dahab, and then it's counterintuitive, but I have a physical space now. So I'm talking to you from an outdoors location that I just moved in, and you would actually be seeing that, but there is ongoing traffic there. So it's like for Dahab is almost COVID-19 free. So people are walking the streets. There is a lot of space activity going on. So I think it's pretty exciting to be connecting with people both virtually and physically there. So definitely I would follow up after and would be glad to discuss partnership. So thank you so much for all the insights. It had been fabulous. I love everything that you're doing, and congratulations for Shabab Labs. And then you have a partner in Egypt as well.
Yes, that's amazing. We would definitely love to talk in more depth about potential collaborations with maybe everybody in the room, especially Abdu, because we were colleagues in the PFP in 2018. And as I said, we are always open for collaborations because I believe that impact has no borders. We have the same mission and a similar vision to Legacy International. This is why also we're collaborating closely with them, and we really hope to see the impact coming through.
Great, thank you. Are there any more questions before we wrap up for today? Okay. Not seeing any, so I'll turn it back over to Mona for some final thoughts, and then some final thoughts from Mr. Ash. So 2 sets of final thoughts. Thank you.
I'm very happy, honestly, to have this conversation going, to have all of these reflections. I'm glad to see, the positive feedback from everyone, from legacy supporters and alumni and network today, and it gives me reassurance that we are working on towards the right goal and in the right way. And maybe just a final thought would be for everyone to really make use of whatever time we have left with COVID to really dwell into this kind of reflection, like our purpose in life as professionals and as individuals. What's our responsibility? What's our duty? What do we want to establish or achieve? And how do we want to get there? And again, like theory of change is just one tool for you to do that, but it's a good tool to make you write these things down in a, again, organized way. It personally helps a lot in our endeavor, and I hope that we can collaborate and make this change that we're talking about happen more rapidly than we think it can. Definitely change needs time, but like we've been working for 3.5 years now at Riyadh, and it really seems like yesterday. So when you're working towards a goal that you're passionate about, you're enjoying the journey, time just flies and you don't feel it. And you'd be super happy, like even if you are growing, you would feel that at least I'm doing something that is worthwhile and I'm leaving a legacy. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. I'm very excited to check out Shabab Labs. I already signed up, so I will be having a look. Mr. Ash, please, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
What can I say? You always exceed my expectations, Mona, and I'm so happy to be able to spend this hour and so a few minutes with you today and with all of you. This alumni network of Legacy International is so critical, so important, and we are working day and night to try to expand it and to unify our goals in such a way that they're not only successful in theory and in small micro practices, but that we can expand them globally and seeking out the financial and the intellectual support for it. We're all familiar with the quotes, "Change me, O Lord, not my circumstance," or "You cannot change a community until you change yourself." And today we received practical and, should I say, ishara, pointers, hints on how to accomplish this change. And it brought to mind two quotations from the famous Lebanese writer and poet Khalil Gibran, who said, "Work is love made visible." And Mona was talking about the passion behind the work, and certainly we at Legacy are familiar with that same passion that has helped us go forward for over 40 years. But he also said something else which points directly to change. And again, it's a subject, I think it's the subtext of everything that Mona was speaking about today. Khalil Gibran said, "Your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you as by the attitude you bring to life, not so much by what happens to you as by the way your mind looks at what happens." So thank you, Mona. Thank you, Khalil Gibran. Thank you, Lebanon. And thank you, all of you. Thank all of you for joining us today. And I look forward to more practical opportunities to work together and more of the Global Viewpoints Forums. Thank you, Jason and Teresa and the rest of our staff and all of you who have joined us. Allah bless you everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Just a reminder, we have Global Viewpoint Forums on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month. The next two will be in February, February 10th with Dr. Ira Kaufman and Ella Feathers, who have joined us here today, and February 24th with Ashley Davis as well. So please make sure you're on the newsletter and signed up for those. Teresa, we would like to get a social media, a picture if we could, as a follow-up. Teresa, take it away.
Yes, please. So if you're here and you're able to, we would love for you to turn on your camera so I could take a screenshot of you. And we do have 2 screens today, so I'll do 2 screenshots. So I'm just gonna give you a 3-second countdown. Awesome, it's great to see you all. Great, great. Okay, all right, I'm gonna give you a 3-second countdown. You can give me a thumbs up, peace sign, whatever. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And I'm gonna do one more, sorry. All right, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, great rest of your week.